This multi-platinum artist joined one of the biggest rock bands of all time in 1976, Rock Pack. What an honor to be speaking with legendary icon Lou Gramm. Hi, Lou.
Hi, Kiki. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you so much. We appreciate you chatting with us. And
my pleasure.
Just jumping right in here. Now, you were born in Rochester, New York, and your parents were musical from what I understand. So your background was all there. Is that what got you started in music?
I think it was, yeah. My dad had his own big band in the late 40s, and my mom was the singer. That's how they met and fell in love.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That is such a cool story.
Yeah, it is.
Now, Lou, do you also remember your first concert that you went to, and did that also, say, hey, this is what I want to do?
Well, my first, like you said, we had a single on Chrysalis. We were waiting to do the album, and Chrysalis was supposed to be setting up their U.S. headquarters on the East and the West Coast. And at the last minute, they decided to stay strictly in Europe, and so we asked out of our contract, and they obliged, and Capitol Records picked us up.
And how was KISS involved in this whole thing?
Well, after Black Sheep's second album on Capitol Records, we were picked to be the special guest for KISS's tour to promote their new album, and basically that would introduce us to an audience that would be into the style of rock that we played, and so we played with them in Boston at a big arena back in 1975, and our first show with them, we got a standing ovation, and they gave us the okay to go out and do an encore. So we did the encore, and we were feeling great, and we listened to most of KISS set, and we hopped in our vehicles and drove home because it was Christmas Eve.
Right, and then what happened?
Well, then about an hour and a half behind us was our crew with the equipment truck, and it was raining, and they were on the New York State Thruway, and the rain turned to ice, and they slid off the thruway, and the truck tipped over. They just had bumps and bruises, but they couldn't get the back door open, so we didn't know what condition the equipment was in.
Right.
And probably about 3:30 or 4 in the morning of Christmas morning, I got a phone call saying that they were outside of a gas station, and the truck had been towed to the gas station and just left there until after Christmas, and they were stuck there
with all the equipment.
Well, with all the equipment and no ride.
Oh my God!
So the bass player and I, got a car. I borrowed my dad's station wagon, and we set out to Albany. That's where they went off the road, which is about a 4.5-5 hour drive, and we picked them up. So while we were there, we shined the headlights of the wagon on the back of the truck, and we managed to get the door open. And as we discovered, and then the next day actually took inventory. About 80% of our equipment was destroyed, way past repairing.
So, what was Black Sheep's story then?
Well, then it was my job to call KISS's tour manager and let them know that we wouldn't be there because of that incident, and they were very disappointed.
Right.
But then I got a call from Capitol Records,
and
about why we wouldn't be there, and I told them why, and they said, "Well, you've got to rent equipment, rent a truck, beg, borrow, steal. You've got a show to do the day after tomorrow." And I says, "I'll try anything to get there, but if I don't have any luck, I'm going to call you back and let you know." Well, there were 5 of us in the band. We tried to all borrow a little bit from our parents.
Right. For you.
Well, in a way, it got me through it got me to an open door. To a door that was a little bit open, and then I flew down to New York and auditioned for real.
Wow. And then you guys formed a band together. The name is Trigger. But from what I understand, another band had the same name. So Mick changed it to Foreigner. And that was because there were 3 Brits, 3 Americans. And that's how that name came about, right?
Yep. Well, when we heard Trigger, some guys thought it meant like the trigger on a gun.
Yep.
But I thought it was, Roy Rogers' horse.
That is perfect. So now, Lou, when you guys changed the name to Foreigner, did you have a sense of, you know what, this is going to happen for real now? Did you feel that at that point?
Well, by then I was getting a little bit of a feeling because we had written about six songs by that point, and we had some good demos, and it really stood up, and was had a lot of personality compared to a lot of the things that were on the radio at that time. Mm-hmm. We had 5 or 6 songs that were done. We sent demo tapes out to a lot of different record companies, and we had the record company representatives come up to our manager's complex's office in Manhattan where we rehearsed.
Okay.
And they listened to us, and every single one of them passed.
Wow.
Except Atlantic Records. They passed, but their A&R guy, John Kolodna, came back and said, your songs and your playing is damn good. He goes, but your songs, they're way too long. He says, let's listen to the tapes, and we'll find spots to edit them, to make them a little more concise. So we did that, and we edited those long songs down to about 3 minutes, and we had the Atlantic president and some people from Atlantic down to hear us again, and we played the songs as if they were radio songs.
Wow. So thank goodness for John, right?
Yes, and we were signed.
Wow. Now, why did it take you guys so long to get on the road? Because you took off. You did by 1978, right? You were up and on top, and
well, we were touring in earnest. The end of '76 and early '77, we were finishing our first album. But by spring of '77, we were on the road opening for the Doobie Brothers.
Wow. So when you went on the road, oh, doggy.
Yes, I have a few doggies here.
We're just waiting for them to. What kind of dogs do you have?
Enough, guys. Hello. You know what? I'm going to find another room.
Okay.
Maybe the garage.
Oh, is it cold up there?
It's cold, but I've got my garage heated because I have some muscle cars in it.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, that's my hobby. Or should I say my passion?
I love that. I love convertibles or no?
Not convertibles, but big motors, beautiful shape.
Sweet.
And he's a muscle car guy.
Now, Lou, when you got on the road, people loved you guys. They were eating you up, literally. I mean, it was like you were working for what you were working for. You got it, and you guys got it quickly. I mean, again, this is from the outside looking in.
Sure.
How did you handle that newly acquired fame that you did get so quickly?
Well, it was new to most of us. Ian MacDonald obviously had been in King Crimson and had some of that already, and Mick, being in Spooky Tooth, had some of that already. Mm-hmm. And he also played with Leslie West in Mountain for a while, so he knew what the success felt like. And it was mostly the American guys who hadn't tasted that. I mean, I had just a little taste of it with Black Sheep, right. But I did know what the road was like,
Right.
And but when we put our first tour schedule together, opening for the Doobie Brothers, they were playing every other day.
Wow.
For 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't think anybody was ready for that kind of a schedule. And when you perform and then 15 minutes later your clothes are changed and you've got a sandwich in your hand and you get on the bus and drive for 8 hours to the next city, it does wear you out after a while.
Right, grueling, but again, that's what you were working for.
Yeah,
definitely what you were working towards. Now, then Foreigner releases Head Games.
Head Games sold 1.5 million copies. Double Vision sold, I think, 5 million, and then Head Games sold, I think, 1.5 million. Then Foreigner 4 sold.
So, what do you think the discrepancy in fan base between both of Head Games and Double Vision? What do you think happened there? Fans accepted one over the other.
In the Double Vision album, we had a particular producer who was really meticulous in the way he produced things, and had his ear tuned into a certain type of sound, and he and Mick co-produced all the albums. They were on the same page and really hit it off personality-wise and professionally. So I think that relationship benefited us immensely. Now for the Head Games album, we used Roy Thomas Baker, who produced Queen and the Cars and a number of other groups, and he was very successful. But when we would finish up, sometimes at 1 or 2 in the morning, we would set a time when we wanted to be in. Whether when we finished up at 2 o'clock in the morning, we'd set the start time for the next day at 10:30 or 11.
Wow.
And there'd be many times when most of the band would be there, and our producer and our engineer wouldn't show up till 2:30, 2:45 in the afternoon.
Oh my gosh!
And therefore we'd have to work till 5 in the morning. Then the next that morning, and it just ended up being a rat race, and he bottles of champagne and everything else around, and an hour and a half of talking before we started playing any music, and
you weren't getting down to brass tacks like you
we're
needed
getting down to brass tacks, and we would groom our songs to a certain point, but then we would leave room for the producer to more or less put his expertise to them. Give them a little room to create.
Right. Now, what happened when Mutt Lange jumped in?
Well, let me finish one thing first. So as it turned out, Roy was, I think he's a great producer. I've heard his work; it's really great. But
right.
He just didn't fit with us, and consequently, the album suffered.
Okay. Oh, okay. So
okay.
You think that's what happened there?
I do.
Okay. But 6 members down to 4, hence Foreigner 4. So what happened there?
Well, no, Foreigner 4 was because it was our 4th album.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not, because everything...
Most people think that we went down to 4, but it's because it was our 4th album.
Honestly, Lou, that's what everything says.
I understand that, but that is not the reason. And people say, that we went down to 4. I go, oh yeah, that makes sense. But that's not the reason.
Well, yeah, you know the reason. You're the guy.
I better know it.
Tell me about Mutt Lange coming into the mix.
Well, Mutt Lange was just finishing up the Leopard album, and actually he was a little late. We had to wait about 2 or 3 weeks for him because he was just mixing the AC/DC album, the newest AC/DC album.
Okay.
And so we waited for him, and then he came in and started listening to our song ideas and stuff, and kind of was shaking his head, and we all went in the studio, and he said, look, he says, you're a great band. He told Mick, you and Lou are terrific songwriters. He goes, but your last album, he says, doesn't sound like the songs were completed. And we go, well, they weren't, and he says, because of that, and because of the low sales, there's been some damage done. You can't afford another album like that. He says, or I would say your careers are over as Foreigner. And he said, so he says, we've got to make sure the songs, every song on the album is great. he says, and some of the things that you were just playing me a little bit out there, he says, they don't sound strong enough. And we were a little surprised because we had put, you know, we knew what the stakes were for this album,
right?
And we thought we were showing him some of our best work ever, and we told him that we wanted him to give those songs a chance, and if he had ideas on how he could enhance the basis of those songs while not getting rid of the song completely, that he was welcome to participate. And he did. He started coming up with little ideas for certain songs, and they blossomed.
Okay, so you still were able to keep the songs that you wanted to.
Yes.
And where was your inspiration coming from? Did you and Mix it?
I would say 70-75% of the time.
Okay, because it worked.
And you know, if we weren't in agreement, if he heard something I didn't hear, I would acquiesce to him. You know, he was the main guy.
But it was teamwork. You guys are working together. Yep.
Absolutely, it was teamwork. So at any rate, we were listening to the tapes, and I heard the beginning chords of "I Want to Know What Love Is," and I says, "Mick," I says, "stop." I says, "Rewind a little bit. What is that?" And he goes, "Oh," he says, "that's nothing." He says, "It's just an idea. It's not really anything." I says, "Can you play it?" And immediately he starts to play it on the piano, you know, and he starts singing. Gotta take a little time, you know, and then the words were all different, but the mood of the song and the chords and the way the lyrics came in made my short hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
Seriously.
Yep, and you know, I said that song. I said that song is really something. I says we need to work that song, and he was in agreement. Really, he just wished that he would have got a little farther on it before he played it for me. But he basically had 90% of the song in terms of the chords done, and we worked on the lyrics and the melody a little bit together, and then he ran away with it. He got inspired and kind of knew what he wanted it to say and everything,
and it was so different from what you had already done.
Yes, from anything we had done.
And that was your number one song, correct?
It was our only number one song, but it was number one around the world.
And Lou, honestly, the emotion that you put into that song, I mean, even when you listen to it now, what does that song mean to you?
It's really bearing your soul. You know, it has nothing to do with technique or hitting the notes or this or that. It's a confession.
Yeah, it came from your core.
Yes.
And definitely we all feel that, because even listening to that song today, you sit in your car and go, oh my God, you stick your head out the window. I want to know what love is. I want to. You just make me want to every time. It's an amazing, amazing song.
Thanks. So let me tell you something about this. So we worked on the music, and I put a little rough vocal on it. It was, you know, we hadn't quite finished a word, so I was kind of scat singing some of it. And then this black man comes in to the studio. He happens to be a friend of Mick's, and he's listening to the song. And Mick's asking him, "What are you doing now?" He says, "Well," he says, I work for a gospel label." And blah 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 blah. And he says, "This is a wonderful, wonderful song." He says, "But you know what this needs, don't you?"
Wow.
He says it needs a gospel choir, and that floored everybody, because it like immediately opened our eyes and that idea, it was not an idea. It had to be that way now.
Well, sure, but it was like he was placed there for a reason.
Yep. And he pulls out a CD from his briefcase, and he says, he's one of the gospel groups on my label is the New Jersey Mass Choir. He says, listen to them. Put the CD in, and it was like listening to angels.
Oh my goodness.
And Mick said, when could we get them down to try some things? And he said, well, the day after tomorrow. So we were all nervous. We couldn't wait for them to get here. And they came in. They were all really nice. And they went into the live room, and we had about a half a dozen mics set up. And before they uttered a note, they got in a big circle, holding hands, and said the Lord's Prayer.
Wow.
And then when they began to sing, it was like listening to angels.
And so when you sang with them, I can't even imagine. Just try to put that into words for us, what that felt like for you.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable, and it was so moving that even if I had never sung before, I think people would know just from the emotion of it what I was talking about.
Yeah, wow.
And you know what? We were totally fortunate enough the following year when we played Madison Square Garden that they were the choir on that song.
Oh, wow.
They came and performed live with us.
Nice.
You know, they have their own following. They obviously do Christian music and things of that nature, and they are very well known in their own right.
Well, and that's why it's funny when you said you guys were nervous before they were coming into the room, and I'm sure they had the same sense of nervousness as well to be singing with you.
And we found out later that exactly that's what it was.
So now you decide to do your own thing.
Well, after the Agent Provocateur album, we agreed. After that tour, we agreed that we were going to take a couple months off and then get right back in the studio and start working on the next album. And Mick said he was going to vacation with his wife for a month or so, and he'd see us soon. Well, 2 months, 4 months went by. Didn't hear from Mick.
Was he still on vacation?
Well, we didn't know where he was, so we finally called our manager and asked him if he'd heard from Mick, and he goes, "Yeah, I know what Mick's up to." And we said, "Well, he said that we were going to get together in a couple months to start working on a new album," and he says he can't do that. And we said, "Why not?" He's on a worldwide cruise with his wife.
Oh
he won't be back for another 4 months. And we were like, "What?"
You had no idea.
Yep. Well, actually, more than 4 months, you know. And so we were like, "What are we supposed to do?" He says, "Just enjoy yourselves and wait." Well, I was getting antsy because, you know, because Waiting for a Girl Like You was a huge hit on the Foreigner 4 album.
Right.
And then the next album was I Want to Know What Love Is, and people were starting to write us off as a rock band that had gone soft.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
And
how did that make you feel?
Not good. Not good at all. That's the last I'd seen that happen to bands, and it was the death knell for them. You know, because it's almost impossible to gain back your rock credibility when you've turned the corner.
But yet, I Want to Know What Love Is went to number one.
It did go to number one.
So it's just kind of crazy how.
Yeah. And Waiting for a Girl, I think, went to number 3.
So it's just crazy to me that those two ballads brought you to the top of the 100, and then your fan base turned.
Well, a lot of them did. I understood it though, because if it had been Waiting for a Girl Like You, then another couple rock hits, then I Want to Know What Love Is. That wouldn't have happened, but it was Waiting for a Girl Like You, I Want to Know What Love Is, and guess what the next single was on the next album? I Don't Want to Live Without You. So here you are, 3 big hits. They're all ballads. Most of the songs that Mick and I were working on, he was playing keyboards. And I'm thinking to myself, he's a guitar player. I mean, if he don't pick up his guitar, we have no rock credibility on the new album.
Right.
And he played guitar on a couple songs, but mostly he was on keyboards. And the first thing we worked on was I Don't Want to Live Without You. So I was not happy, and he finished the song without us even getting together to work on it. And then he wanted to record that one first. And I was so fed up that when I started singing the song, I put just a slight little Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, I don't want to live, a little spin on my voice to let him know how thrilled I was, And while I'm doing that, I figured when I look up, I'm going to see an angry face on him. He was smiling ear to ear, and after the first take was done, he says, "Geez, Lou, I think we've got it."
Oh my God!
Yeah, can you just do a little more of it? So I put more schmaltz on it, and he asked me to sing the whole thing again like that.
Seriously?
I'm serious.
And were you dying inside?
I was dying inside. I'm going, what can I do to let him know how unhappy I am?
So then there's Midnight Blue.
Yeah. Well, he eventually, obviously, I Don't Want to Live Without You made it to the top 3.
Right.
And
so your Schmitzen worked out.
Yeah, I guess. But, so there you are. In the past 7 or 8 years, we only had 3 big songs, and they were all ballads.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Because you guys were so rocky.
Yes, we were. We were. And so when he went on his world cruise with his wife, I had the time wrong. That was after the Inside Information album. He went on the cruise, and when I found out he was going to be gone for a long time, I already had about 4 or 5 songs. At any rate, I found that there was a window for me to record an album.
And what was it like when you finally said, "That's it, we're done. I'm done with you guys. I'm going to go out on my own. Do it my own way."
Well, when my album came out, Midnight Blue was a huge hit right off the bat, and we got the opportunity my band got the opportunity to tour with Steve Miller.
Oh wow!
So I was out with Steve Miller for a couple months, and all of a sudden, Foreigner's manager calls and says,
"What are you doing?"
"Okay, Lou, you've got to stop this now. We're ready to start another album." And I said, "Listen, I've learned from Mick and I've learned from you. When you have a record out and you have a hit single, you do everything in your power to promote it and keep it afloat and keep it in the charts." I says, I'm not going to come back there and start another album. I can tell you what it's going to be like. And I like what I'm doing now, and I think I'm going to finish that up. If he wants to wait for me to finish touring, like I waited for him in his round the world cruise, I says, then we can talk. I says, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing now. I'm going to see my tour through to the end.
Right.
And he said, okay. And then I found out through the grapevine that they had another singer.
Oh, so you didn't even? There was no conversation. It was just okay. I'm done, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. After all those years.
Uh-huh.
So then we get to April of 97. You're getting ready to tour Japan. That never happened.
No.
So what happened, Lou?
I was starting to get these incredible headaches, and I knew they weren't hangovers because I in '91 I had gone to rehab and kicked drugs and alcohol, and by '97 was 6 years clean and sober. And so I don't know where the headaches were coming from. The eyes were crossing periodically. It was just a number of symptoms that were very strange and started to be very scary. So I had an MRI, and they discovered a non-cancerous tumor about the size of an egg.
Jeez.
With tentacles wrapped around my pituitary and my optic nerve.
Scary as hell.
Yep, and I couldn't get a doctor to operate on it.
Wow.
They all told me that if they did operate, the likelihood of survival was very slim, let alone returning to any normalcy. And the doctor in Rochester recommended me to the best doctor in New York City for this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I went down there, had another MRI, and he sent me home. To live out what was left of my life.
So what made you push?
I was watching 60 Minutes, and they had a segment on a doctor at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, Dr. Black, and that he was the purveyor of laser surgery to remove brain tumors.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? And that people who had been written off, he was saving their lives, one after the other.
Wow.
At the end of the segment, they showed his office number. And I was on the phone with his secretary the next morning at about 7:15 in the morning and told her what my situation was and that I basically had been given a death sentence. And she says, send your MRIs to us immediately and get on a plane. She said, this was Tuesday morning. She says, and get on a plane. We have an opening Thursday morning. And I knew what that meant. That meant that somebody died before they can get on the operating table.
Yeah.
So I went there, and at about 5 o'clock in the morning, on a Thursday morning, they were wheeling me into the operating room, and I was deep in prayer.
I'm going to say, Lou, you've had a lot of divine interventions in your life. I mean, this is just the few that we've talked about today. I mean, you are one of the luckiest people I've ever spoken to in my life.
Blessed.
I mean, you are so blessed. You are so blessed.
And the operation was almost 17 hours.
Oh my gosh. So you come out of it and you're recovering, you're in recovery phase, and then you go on tour again while you're recovering. What made you do that? Why did you do that?
We were set to do Japan in the Far East when the tumor made itself known, and I had to get the operation. Mm-hmm. And so after the operation, the doctor that operated told me he didn't want me. He knew, I told him what I did for a living. So he didn't want me on stage with loud volumes and vibrations. He didn't want any of that. He told me I would drag race one of my muscle cars at the track every now and then. He said, I don't want you doing that at all. He says, it's the vibrations. I don't want you to do that. It's your life at stake. And I told him I wouldn't. And our manager told me, look, we had to cancel those shows because of you, so we rescheduled them for September. I said, September? I said, my operation was I believe it was at the end of March or early April. I'm not quite sure right now, but so September he had us rebooked in Japan and Australia. And even though my doctor said not to perform for a year and a half. So I said, look, I can't perform. My doctor's, he says, well, look, we got out of those shows so you could have your operation. He says, but this time we're going to get our asses sued. So out I went.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know how you got through that, because really. Well,
the the operation and the things that were damaged left me with long-term memory loss and just not feeling like myself for another 5 or 6 years.
Right.
You know, and I was taking steroids and this and that. They were trying to help me to get my life back to a semblance of what it used to be. And so when I was on stage, I had the words to every song we played written down in big black markers on pieces of white paper, and they were taped in a big semicircle around me. And I had my mic stand, and I didn't move. I just looked at the words to every song I was singing.
Right.
And that's all I could do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's surprising that you were even able to do that, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. And honestly, they were concerned about being sued. It was very shocking and kind of unbelievable that they cared so little about my life.
Right. But, you care enough that you got yourself well, because now here you are today. You're still performing. You're out there. You sound amazing. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
I've watched you, and I literally cannot wait to see you in person, because you are an icon and you are amazing. And just to know everything that you have been through, I think I'm sure you do. You give people strength who have been down and been through maybe similar situations. You give them hope that you can get well and you can do what you need to do again.
Well, I'm so thankful to God that He's, for whatever I went through before the operation and after the operation, that He's brought me to the place I am.
Oh, sure. Now, back in October, you performed with everyone in Foreigner at the tail end of the 40th anniversary tour in Michigan.
That's right.
Yeah, the reviews were incredible. Fans loved all of you, especially you. Now, when you were on that stage sharing in that moment with Mick, Kelly, the rest of the guys, looking back, what was your favorite moment from those two shows?
I think being able to belt out the songs the way I used to, because the last time Mick heard me, basically I was still pretty fragile.
Okay.
So I don't think he even knew how far I'd come from those days. And when he heard me sing, his jaw dropped.
Oh, yeah, because I watched those, and I said, oh, my God, Lou is here. Lou is here. And it was wonderful.
And, you can't change what happened, but I can just quietly feel good about where my journey has taken me at this point.
That is absolutely, it's just so wonderful to hear you say that, because now you tour with your band, you guys have great chemistry, and you're starting off the new year by joining John Payne of Asia's Rock Pack with Bobby Kimball of Toto. You got Fee Waybill of The Tubes, Steve Augeri, he's awesome, of Journey.
Yes, he is.
And of course, John Payne. Now, how did you connect with John and do some shows with him with the Rock Pack?
Well, they connected with my management. This was a couple years ago, and they were doing their Rock Pack show in Las Vegas, and asked me if I wanted to be their guest singer for a week, and I had nothing going on that week, and they were giving me a good pay and all incidentals and rooms and flights included, and I just thought it was terrific to perform with somebody different.
Right.
Now I think I did 6 or 7 of my songs, but they sound a little different when different people are playing them.
Sure.
And it was exciting, and there were a couple singers, and other than myself, and when each of us went out, the audience went crazy, and it was just a lot of fun. So I sang 7 songs. I came off the stage not totally sweaty and exhausted. I still felt almost brand new.
Nice.
And I kind of liked not coming off after an hour and a half feeling like I've been run over,
Right. And you do a bunch of stuff with John and the Rock Pack.
I certainly do.
And now, when you're not on the road, Lou, you mentioned it a little bit, but tell us again, what do you really like to do when you're not touring?
Well, I mentioned that I have muscle cars that I've bought and set up the way I like them, and I go to cruise nights. You know what those are?
Yes, I do. That is so fun. I can't even admit, like, if I go to a cruise night, oh, there's just Lou Gramm sitting here with his muscle car, I would die.
Oh, it's so much fun, and nobody's jerky. They'll come up and they'll say hi, and they'll say how they like my car. Can we shake hands? And and that's about it. Then they say, I'll leave you alone, and I say thank you.
Okay, move along. Right?
Yes, and that's fun. That's what I like to do. I take my kids with me and stuff, and it's just for me. That's the big one.
And did you just do something with NASCAR? You did the national anthem,
and I drove the pace car.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Oh, what a thrill that must have been.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
And how was it to sing the national anthem? You sounded beautiful.
I had a lot of fun doing it, and I met all the drivers.
Oh wow!
It was just a real thrill. They offered me that, and I gobbled it right up. I couldn't wait to get there.
Well, you are such a blessed man, honestly. What a pleasure. And January 20th, you're going to be kicking off the new year with John Payne's Rock Pack at the NYCB Theater in Westbury, New York. Looks like you're going to be doing several dates with John as well as with your own band, right? You've got your own band going out there, too.
Do. Yep, and a couple foreigner shows here and there.
Oh, nice. Oh, you gotta let me know.
Oh yeah, it'll be on their website and mine too.
Perfect. Well, Lou, I am so glad you're well. We're all glad you're well, and we're so fortunate that you still get to deliver your music to us, your fans, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much, Lou.
That's really nice. Thank you so much.
First time. Okay. This is what started it all off.
Climb any mountain, sail across a stormy sea. If that's what it takes me.